Welcome, everybody. Hey, thanks for being on the webinar tonight. It's going to be a blast. So glad you're here. We've got about 2 minutes before we actually start. So I want to make sure, just remind you of a couple of quick things. One, make sure you got pad and paper. Make sure you got something to write on and a pen or two. So you're going to be taking a lot of great notes tonight. And make sure you got some water so you can get all the way through the webinar without having to leave and go get anything. I'm Bill Barnett. I'll be doing the webinar tonight. For those of you that don't know me, I've been doing this real estate investing business for, well, since 1992. So 28 years now plus, and absolutely love it. It just gets better. And we are on the precipice of some incredibly great things happening in the real estate market. I know a lot of people freaked out. We're just now coming out of COVID good. Getting into the summer, life is getting a little bit back to normal, but the real estate market is rocketing right now. So we're going to talk a lot tonight about the things that make the real estate market go, what you need to be paying attention to, how you can best benefit and shift your business into the most profitable side of real estate as we go forward. Now, if you're not in investing already, great place to be, great place to start right now, tonight with us. So we're going to be going in just a few minutes. So make sure you got something to drink, a cup of coffee, water, whatever, something to take notes with. And we're going to start the webinar here in, about another half minute or so. I look a lot different now that I've grown some facial hair. I look a lot younger than I did in that video. So you'll leave the lights back. So
that's overrated, don't you think?
lighting. All right, so you let me know where you want this thing, because I want to get it set one time and be done with it.
I think you're in good shape.
Right there. Does that work?
That does work.
That works.
All right, cool. So welcome in, everybody, this morning. Thanks for coming out. Everybody that's joining us on Zoom, thank you for coming out. It's time to get radical. So what Jack Palance ends with is, you got to figure out the one thing. What's the one thing? Well, for all of us, what's the one thing?
Real estate.
Yeah, it's real estate. Yeah. Whether it's money through real estate, whether it's buy and hold, whether it's flip. But that's why we're here, is how do we do real estate better, faster, more of it? And so one of the things we're going to talk about today is one of the things you've got to do to get better, faster, and being able to do more is you got to get radical. And what radical is you got to get with it. You got to get into it, dedicated to it, eat up with it. That's the one thing. You got to get committed to it. When I wake up every day, I go get a cup of coffee, and about the first 8-10 minutes of my day, I'm sitting with a cup of coffee and a notepad. And I ask myself this question every day about my business. What can I do to improve my business today? And sometimes I get really crummy answers. And about once or twice a week, I get an answer that I go, wow. That's why you have the pen and paper, so that as your mind starts telling you, here's what you can do today, you jot those things down. And then I look at, okay, now how do I implement that? So what is it that I'm going to do today to make my business better? Am I going to reach out to some more realtors today? Am I going to get on realtor.com? I mean, basically every property that's on the MLS, you're going to be able to access through realtor.com. Can't get your comps there, but you can look at the property. And so can you do some scouring around your county, around your city, literally around the country, to be able to look for properties? Yeah, it's a great, great site. It's the public site of the National Association of Realtors, realtor.com. So it's time to get radical. We've lost, well, what? Certainly 2 months, yes, maybe 3, but we've certainly lost March. Well, we've lost over 3, because sometime in March, everything got weird. So we lost part of March, we lost all of April, we lost all of May, and things are getting back now. There's a tremendous amount of great opportunity out there right now, because so many people totally, one, for a while were forced to be away from their business. That included us as investors. Now, one of the things that I had a couple people call me and they were like, well, you're not doing anything. I'm like, well, of course I am. And they're like, well, you're locked down. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm essential. And if you go look at the government website, all of us as real estate investors are defined as essential. It doesn't say real estate investors. What it says is if you're involved in the producing, construction, or rehabilitation of property to help me, here's a phrase that I had not run across in quite a while in our country, to help remedy the housing shortage, you're considered essential. So what's rehabbing? It's getting property available either to sell or to rent. So if you're a buy and hold person, you're essential. If you're a flipper, you're essential. If you're a wholesaler, you're essential. So when I got some calls, I was like, yeah, I haven't slowed down that part of my business at all, because the way the government defines who is essential and who isn't, we're all considered essential. I got multiple rehab projects going on right now. They've been going on through this thing. And that's what you got to do. You just got to keep going and remember who you are, that you are an essential part of our business, our economy. When you look at the economy, the real estate, the single family real estate market is 7 times larger than the entire stock market. If you take every company that's on every exchange in the US, the single family real estate market is about 7 times bigger than that. So does that make it more valuable? Yeah, makes it a lot more valuable. And we all know what's the average time, and it's a little range, what's the average time that a person in America owns their home?
7 years.
Yeah, it's actually shorter than 7. 7's been is about 10 years ago. We're now down to in the 4 to 5 range. And so here's what I want you to think about. We hear a lot in the news about new housing starts, and we hear that because it's easy for them to track and it's kind of sexy. It's the new stuff, man. But the new housing market is a tiny fraction of the existing home market. So think about that for a second. So every house that's going to be built this year, as soon as somebody moves into it, what does it become? An existing home. Yeah, it's not a new home anymore. Now it's part of that existing home market. So when you look at the global picture in the US of how many houses we have, the new market is a tiny percentage of that. The existing home market is where the power is. The existing home market is what drives our economy, so much more so than the stock market. And look, I come from an investment banking background. That's my professional training. So I spent 10 years in the financial services industry, managed money for banks, high net worth individuals. I worked at Merrill Lynch when I got started, all of that stuff, did merchant banking for companies, funded a lot of startups, brought companies to the market. I like that stuff, but it is pale by comparison to the real estate market. Now, at some point in today's talk, we'll go about money a little bit, private money, and some ways that you can go access private funds. And that's the greatest advantage that I bring to my real estate business out of the investment banking world, was how to raise private money. Because I spent a lot of time doing that. That's what we did. We put companies together or took companies over or represented companies that needed $2, $5, $10 million worth of funding, and we'd go do that. And then we'd help them get into the marketplace and become a publicly traded company. So that experience not only translated easily into the real estate world, but it actually is better in real estate than it was in the securities world. So you always got to have multiple ways. So it's great having our lender come up and talk about lending, and you got to have that. You got to have some good lenders on board. You got to have some private money on board. You got to have some hard money lenders. You got to have multiple ways to be able to access funding so your business is not hampered by a lack of funds. And don't get caught in the process of I'm funding one way. You may have a way that is your favorite, and you may have a way that's easiest for you, but don't get hung up in just one way. Make sure that you get your funding tentacles, if you will, out in the marketplace, so that if something changes in one environment, your business isn't halted. You can still rock and roll. So you got to have some great lenders. You got to have some great hard money lenders. You got to have some great private money contacts. And we'll talk a little bit about all those. So time to get radical for this year. As we do that, we're going to see that real quick, I've been doing this for 28 years. So yes, I am older than dirt. I started when I was 6 months old. And but I do look younger than Jack Palance, and I'm thankful for that. So many of you have known me from my books, Are You Dumb Enough to Be Rich? And we have a new one of those. Let me borrow your copy there. Thanks for those of you that haven't done that yet, here's what that looks like. That's an Amazon. Jump that, you get the Kindle version. I think it's like $10.99, $9.99, something like that on Kindle. If you're watching today, if you will let Robin know if you'd like a digital copy, if you'd like the Kindle version of the book, let him know. We'll get it to you for simply being with us today. That's our gift to you guys. And so just let Robin know, and we'll make sure that you get a digital copy of that. About 135,000 hard copies, or it's technically a paperback, but about 135,000 of the real physical books have been sold through the years. I've trained several thousand investors to help them get over the hump, to get them to a point where I'm not about you going to seminars, I'm about you going to closings. Now, do you have to have some information to be able to get there? Yeah. But you got to get to a point where you're pulling the trigger. And that's one of the things that I find a lot of times when I go around and talk to clubs. So we'll do it here. So people online, you guys can answer yourself there, everybody that's in the room. So how many of you have closed a deal in the last quarter? Let's go 6 months, since the last quarter is a little wonky. All right, so that's about half the room. How about last year? Okay, so that's the thing. Got to pull the trigger, right? You got to pull the trigger. Now, there are two basic reasons people don't pull the trigger. One is they're concerned about funding, and they're like, man, if I get this offer accepted, how am I going to pay for it? So we'll go through that today. They're also a lot of times just fearful. Am I making a mistake? Now, they feel that way because they haven't been trained properly to understand their numbers. And when you know your numbers are right, and you know you can find funding, is there anything that should be stopping you from buying a property? Because the property is going to tell you whether it's a deal or not. The comps, the rehab, the rental, whatever your exit strategy is for that property, that's going to dictate whether this is a deal or not. And not all properties are deals. And I go look at a lot of rehabs because I love rehab. I do both flip. My partner and I have about 160 rental units, and I do flips, and that money feeds the rental side of the business. So I love doing that. I like the fun part for me. I like the design. I like to go in and get a house that's just a mess. Now, in younger years, I bought a lot of houses that today I'd go, yeah, no, thank you. Just because a house can be done doesn't necessarily mean that that I need to be the one doing it. Sometimes I'm just going to say, I'm going to let somebody else gain years of experience on this property.
And give you more years to know something.
Absolutely. The longer you've been in and the more houses that you've looked at, the more offers that you made, the easier it is for you to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, this could be done, but I could take this same amount of time and effort and maybe do 2 houses over here, because I'm not going through the craziness. We did a house down in the medical center that was built in 1917 in Fort Worth, 1917. So Was that a learning experience? Yeah. Now, the numbers, all said and done, great, wonderful deal. Terrific deal. And it took about 6 to 7 months longer than it should have, having to deal with the Historical Society. Because you would think their timeline is that of an oak tree. By the time the next ring gets on that tree, I'll have you an answer. Because it takes them forever for no reason, in my opinion. That's just me. So I don't do a lot of those. And I don't do a lot of those because I basically look at it and go, don't need the frustration. You know, we're blessed here in the DFW market. This is a new market. Most of the housing in DFW, I mean, the overwhelming majority was built after World War II. So you start looking in the 50s is really where we started hitting the housing explosion. Those houses I'll do all day long. I got 2 of them in the 50s right now that I'm rehabbing. Love them. I got one in the 40s. I kind of love it. But you start looking at the builds. So 50s, 60s, tons, 70s, tons of properties. And those are easy properties because there's just not that much that can be weird with them. So when you go out and look, if you are, I tell my students this all the time, one of the things that is going to get you matured up in your looking at property very quickly, go look at about 20 to 30 HUD properties. And time you look at 20 to 30 of them, you're going to see about every possible thing that ever come along in the need of a property you're going to have experienced. And so that's a good thing to do for anybody around the country because you're going to see all different types of properties that are going to fall other than they're ultra high end. And unless you're an experienced investor, you don't want to play in the ultra high end because you try to jump up. The numbers are real sexy. I'm going to tell you that. They're just like, oh yeah. But if you don't understand that game, it will eat your lunch in a heartbeat. Okay. So stay where the bulk of the property is, the bulk of the activity. Know what the sweet spot in your market is. So here's how I determine sweet spot. Then we'll get into our slides some more. Any realtor can tell you for the market you're looking at what the median price is for the property, for that area, what the median price. And look, there's 500 median prices in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So you get down into the area, the subdivisions, you want to look at what's the median price for that. I look at 20% either side of that number. That's my sweet spot. I know that if I'm in this particular subdivision, this particular area of town, and I know what the median price is, and I'm hanging 20% either side of that number, that's a fast moving property for that particular part of the market. And if I'm trying to do volume, that's where I want to be, right? Okay. It's not a complicated business. And as you get better at it, you'll squeeze that down to about 10%. But when you get started, 20% either side of median is excellent. And then the better you get, you'll start tightening that up. Just like on your rehab budgets, we teach how to do rehabs. We're going to teach you how to budget, and we're going to have a fat contingency in there so that when you make mistakes, it's accounted for. But as you get better, that contingency shrinks, okay? And your number gets finer and finer. All right, so several thousand investors through the years to get over the hump, because that's what we all have to do is we have to get over the hump. This is, Vernon and I were talking about this yesterday. I'm having a discussion right now with my publisher. We may be changing the title. We've been building everything around over the hump, but we may be changing the title back to Are You Dumb Enough to Be Rich Now? So we've done some testing, and that's which we suggest you do. And so it may have a different look to it by the time it hits the shelves. So you have to understand what it is about your business that motivates you. Everybody's seen the jacket. Okay, it's going away.
Gotta be flexible in this business, right?
That's right. That's right. So what's that old? There used to be an old commercials. Never let them see you sweat. So you were about to. So this is my why. I got 3 boys. Now they don't look like that now, but I wanted you to see them so you can get an idea of what they look like now. So the taller one is now 18. This is about a year old. This picture, he's 18 now, be going to UTA this fall, and then transferring down to University of Texas. I tried to raise him right, but he decided to go there anyway. So he's going to go down to UT after his freshman year. And then this is my little athlete on the other side who is now taller than his brother. And then I have a 28-year-old also. I told you I was older than dirt. And he lives in Tulsa. So Trey, George William Barnett III, lives in Tulsa. So everything we're going to talk about today is real life experience from my business. If I start telling you something that is from one of my students, somebody that I consult with, I'm going to identify it as such. I'm going to say, hey, this wasn't me. This is somebody that I work with, and here's the deal. Everything else, if I don't specify that, it's my personal business, okay? So you've got to understand that whenever you're exposed to training, you got to make sure the people that you're exposed to, they're doing what they tell you. Because if they don't, then you're the one that's taking the risk, right? So I'm an active investor. This is how everything I do, other than coach a little youth baseball, is real estate in some form or another. I'm eat up with it. And many of you know I did 7 years on the radio with Real Estate Now with Bill Barnett. Those have now all shifted to where I do podcasts. I do 2 podcasts a week. One called the Investor Guys podcast with my partner, Kevin Mills. He and I do deals together. We do podcasts together. We, of course, have our own separate businesses as well. But that's the investorguyspodcast.com. You can pick that up on iTunes, Spotify, all those podcast places. And the other one is Real Estate Now with Bill Barnett. So we just took the radio show and after 7 years, switched it over to podcast. It's significantly cheaper, I might add. So you got to think about what is your personal money zone? What's your personal money zone? How much money are you comfortable making? Now, this is a serious question that you need to think about, because the flippant answer is, oh yeah, whatever, $1 million a year, $10 million a year, that's not a real answer. A real answer is sitting down and going, okay, if I want to make $1 million a year, how much is that per month? So you got to be pumping over 80 grand a month. Okay, if you haven't done a deal yet, is that an unrealistic transition? It is. Okay. If you haven't done a deal yet, can you look at how do I get to where if I'm doing flips, maybe I do a flip here in the next quarter? Would that be a viable, good, solid goal? Yeah. So then after you do that, you go, okay, now for the quarter after that, can I do one in 2 or 3 weeks less time? And so we ramp this thing up. When I teach students and people I consult with how to look at property, the first property that we go see together, Vernon's about to experience this, first property we go see together, we're going to be in it about 30 minutes. Do you think when I go look at property, I look at it for 30 minutes? No. I look at it for 6-7 minutes, and that's unless it's got something really incredibly good or really incredibly bad. Then it might be 8 or 9. Do I take pictures? No. The only time I'm taking a picture is if there's something incredibly good or incredibly bad. If it's an average, just run-of-the-mill deal, and all it needs, if it needs gutting, that's not something particularly bad. I'm doing a house right now that when I bought it, it had a koi pond in the family room. And I was like, I've been doing this a long time. I've been in a whole lot of houses. First time I've seen a koi pond inside a house. It doesn't anymore, but it did when I bought it. So you look at it and go, okay, hey, I've got to figure out. That was something I took a picture of, by the way. I should have had it in the slides here. So you get this money concept going. Now, here's how you look at this, in my opinion. What's the most money I've ever made? Now, from that, what would be a significant step up? 20, 25%, 30%? And is that a number, if you're adding a new stream of income, that should be a very realistic number to hit? So let's do easy math. If 100,000 was my answer there, and I'm looking at this year bumping my income to 130, how many deals is that? If I'm flipping property, how many deals is that? That's one deal, okay? And 30 grand, you can hit in this market falling off a log. Okay, so that means I'd have to learn how to do one deal this year to bump my income 30%. Now, how many people would it make an impact in your life and your family's life if your income went up 30%? Absolutely, right? Kids, grandkids, whatever. Okay, so then once you get past that, because the hardest deal you're ever going to do is which one? The first one. That's what, so thank you so much. I may strap that on my back. We just got a fan brought into the room for those of you online with us. So, and that first day, and you can leave it over there, Rob, or Cindy, I'll need it over here, okay? I don't need it over here. I was just yakking. So that first one is the hardest because you're unsure, you're lacking that confidence. So if you're working with somebody that's done hundreds and been involved in thousands of deals, does that change? Because you're not using your experience, you're using who? You're using their experience, right? And if I'm working with you, whoever, if Robin and Cindy working, whatever, and they go, hey, this is a good deal, should you listen? And I've done this multiple times with consulting students where I've said, you ought to buy this. And they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, so here's the deal. If you don't, I am. So I'm just saying, if I buy it, I don't want you mad at me because I'm telling you this is a good deal. But if you don't, we're putting the offer in on it today. It's either going to have your name on it or my name on it. But an offer's going in on this property today. And I'm good either way. I'm actually more profitable if you say no, but I'd rather you do the deal. So does that change things? Yeah. Then you look at it and go, okay, if I've got somebody holding me by the hand that is at a different level in the business than I am, and this is where I want to go, does that make a difference? Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. How do I get there? I love Tony Robbins, and Zig Ziglar was my second father for like 7 years. Anybody that you've ever looked at, listened to, studied, read, Napoleon Hill, it's the first time I was exposed to modeling. That's how Tony refers to it. But all modeling is somebody that is doing what I want to do, and they are doing it at a different level. And you look at them and go, okay, so what are they doing that I'm not doing? And how do I change my business to get to where I'm doing the things that they're doing? Now, just like Robin and Cindy, there are a lot of us that are incredibly blessed in this business. And I would have never thought ever in my life until I started doing it that I would ever be a teacher, that I would ever be a speaker. Didn't have any interest in that whatsoever. Mark Victor Hansen, who is the co-author of all the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, I've known Mark since 1978. I met him so if you ever hear Mark speak, you'll hear him talk about, he filed bankruptcy in '77. He was in the geodesic dome building business, and it was based on rubber plastic combos. And when the oil embargo hit, that business disappeared overnight. And he went kaput, bam. Obviously has recovered from that incredibly nicely. By the way, has about 200 rental units around the country. But Mark's been my big brother business for many, many, many years, well, since '78. And one of the things he talks about with his bankruptcies, he goes, I said, Mark, how did you handle that? He goes, man, I slept like a baby through all that. I was like, really? He goes, yeah, I woke up about every 2 hours crying. But Mark has done incredibly well with the Chicken Soup books, with real estate, but it's all modeling. It's finding who does what I want to do at a different level, and then do I resonate with them? Because there are a lot of great real estate trainers. You're going to resonate with some, you're not going to resonate with others, and that's okay. We're all different, okay? And people that you resonate with and identify with and connect with, those are the people that you want to be modeling. So first criteria in finding out which way you're going to go is somebody that's at that different level, doing the type of business that I want to do. Like I have an incredible friend, Sharif Medawar. He and I were speaking partners for a couple of years, love him to death, just an amazing human being. Sharif does nothing but commercial, and he does a lot of retail space, and I'm not interested in that. Just that has no appeal to me at all. And he crushes it. But you know, you can't do everything. So you want to find the pieces of the business that you identify with that are meaningful to you. And if they are, then that's where you want to focus. And you be careful with the shiny penny theory. And the shiny penny theory is that every time you turn around, look, I catch myself doing it. I'll go hear a great speaker, heard one this week. Hopped online like every good entrepreneur. I reached in, got out my credit card, and bought a mobile home. I've owned 2 mobile home parks. But I was on a webinar, listened to a lady talk about flipping mobile homes, and I was like, man, yeah. So I pulled up my good credit card out, or my credit card like a good entrepreneur, and spent some money to get better. But you can't do everything, right? I don't own any self-storage units. I'm not likely to. Why? Because I just don't have the time. I've got a good process that works. Got about 160 rentals. I would like to have about 250. When I go, my goal for my boys is when I die, I want them to be able to have at least 100 units each that I'm able to leave them. Set up in trust so that I don't have to worry about their future. And look, they're not interested in real estate. My youngest one might be. My oldest was until he got out of high school. I thought I had a partner when he was all the way up till he graduated from high school. And then that interest level cut off. So like, not his thing. Nothing you can do about that. My middle one, not his thing. Youngest one, some interest, we'll see how it goes. Okay. But could they still have ownership, not management, and have the financial benefit coming from that? Okay. So it's a great way to take care of kids, grandkids, future generations. So pick a number out. I'd like for them to have 5. One of the mentors that I've had in my life, a guy named Russ Whitney. I used to do some work with Russ years ago. I used to speak for him. And he's like, hey, here's the thing. Get 1 property a year, just 1. If you get 1 a year, after 10 years, you got 10 properties. And by the time you retire, those will start being paid off. And suddenly you got a really nice monthly cash flow coming in. Now, we ramped that up. I took that and poured gasoline all over it. So, but the process was spot on. I like big money. That's what I like about flips. I like getting big fat checks. I get tickled with that. But you also have to have regular income coming in, right? So these two, it depends on what your cash flow needs are at the moment as to which side of the business you're focusing on. But you should not rule out one just to do the other. They work complementary, hand in hand. So one of the things when I'm working with consulting clients is we get them started doing a flip or 2 so they have some cash to now go buy duplexes, quads, trips, small apartment buildings, to get started on buy and hold. We're about to get into another season of seller financing. You can bet that's going to happen. So we're going to have to get radical to do that because it is a great piece of the business. So here's a question. If there were a way for you to explode through your money comfort zone, how many of you would want to know that? Good. And I hope everybody online was like, yep, that's me. So here's the thing. If I'm going to go through my comfort zone, then I have to have mentor. I have to have a consultant. I have to have a fear fighter. I have to have somebody that empowers me. Can that all be one person? Certainly. Okay. But I have to have somebody that is blazing the path for me, and they've already been down there. One of my other mentors said, don't be the trailblazer, because what I've noticed about trailblazers through the years is they end up face down in the dirt with arrows in their back. We want to be the guy behind the trailblazer, right? Let them go discover all that stuff. Dr. Al Lowry is a dear friend of mine. Al just turned 93 back in April. Still out there, just an amazing man. I think he still has the original toupee, but that's another thing. So,
Who won't tell me said that?
but Al was one of those guys. Al was one of the trailblazers. Robert Allen, who is I'm incredibly close with. Bob wrote the foreword for the last 2 editions of Dumb Enough. Talked to him last week. We still stay in touch. And I was spent about 8 years working with Bob on a daily basis. One of those guys, trailblazer guys. You guys, probably a lot of you will remember the name Carlton Sheets. Carlton Sheets, here's something you probably don't know about Carlton. Carlton worked for Bob. And so he left Bob and basically copied Bob's system, the no money down. And so there you might be expecting there to be a legal battle, and there was. So he worked for Bob, and then he worked for Bob again. After he had his own company, he worked for Bob for several years. After that, paying off the lawsuit settlement. Trailblazers, though, right? As a sidebar comment. Trailblazers. I don't need to be the trailblazer. I don't need to be the guy that discovers the path. I want to be the guy that looks at, hey, this person's been down the path already. If there are any snakes or alligators. So the guy sent me a private message this week, a buddy of mine down in Houston. And he was walking, I don't know where he was. I hadn't found that out yet, but he's walking out in the woods. It's a clear path. I mean, it's not like exploring. It's just a path. And he's walking on it, and he rounds the path. He said, you're not going to believe this. Watch. And he rounds this path. And there's an alligator in the path. And it is a large alligator. And I'm like, dude, you're insane. I don't want to find alligators on my path. I want all the alligators on my real estate path to have been cleared out by those that have come before and that I'm modeling, so that I know the path is safe for me. And I'm going to tell you, I got enough scars for all of us in this room and everybody that's online as well. So you got to have somebody that you can trust that's been down this path before to be able to get you to explode through your money comfort zone. To do that, you have to make radical changes. We've all been around enough to hear, we've got a couple guys in here, maybe not, but I bet you guys have heard this as well. And it's an old Chinese proverb. And that is, if you don't change what you're doing, you're going to get what you have. And that's, I'm sure I butchered it pretty good, but you get the idea, right? On one of the things in our company is change your habits, change your life. I've got to do something different if I want to be in a different place than I am right now. And all of us experience that. I experience that in my business, in my personal life. I make changes all the time. Tony was one of the guys that really helped me understand many years ago when he was, Tony's a little bit younger than me, not much, which shocks me, but not much, about 4 years younger than me. But when he was really bursting onto the scene, got me to understand that change is instantaneous. Change is the decision. If I'm going to decide to do something different because I want to be in a different spot, then change is what makes that happen. And that change happens the instant I make the decision. Probably all of us at some point in my life, I know I have many times. You decided you were going to do something, but you had no earthly concept of how in the world you were going to pay for it. Anybody other than me ever been in that position? Yeah, but you made the decision. I don't know. Bob Allen, one of the great things that Bob taught me was say yes to the opportunity, clean the mess up later. And that's what that experience is when I'm going to do this. Well, how are you going to, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. One of the decisions I made years and years ago was that at some point in my life, I'm going to have an opportunity to get involved with a race team. Now, at the time I set that out as one of my goals, I was thinking NASCAR. I grew up around NASCAR. And so I was thinking NASCAR and did not know how in the world that was going to happen. I just made the decision that it was going to happen because I go to a lot of races. And as I go and I meet people, I get in the pits and stuff, I keep telling, hey, if you ever need any help with anything, let me know. I'm your guy, you know. And years and years and years went by that nobody said, sure. You know, and the last thing, if you owned a race team that you'd want to do is have me pick a tool up. I'm not your guy for that. So I'm out at the ballpark in Arlington where I officed for 14 years. And I meet a guy, John Lopes, who was an attorney. He used to be on the Mavericks legal staff. He was the number 2 guy for the Mavericks legal team. John and I become friends over the course of a couple of years. We really get to know each other well. And out of the blue, a guy calls him from Arizona that he did not know, but called John and said, hey, I know a little bit about who you are. I want to fly down to Dallas and interview you for an opportunity. And so what he found out about John, before he came down, was John was a West Point grad. You think they teach pretty good skills of leadership at West Point? Yeah. He was in the Army Air Corps helicopter pilot. He flew a mission into Grenada when that thing happened. He was one of the helicopter guys in that, just an incredible guy, super leader. And so Steve Fisher comes down. Steve owned a commercial roofing company, did huge hotels, big commercial buildings, malls, that kind of stuff, truly commercial roofing. And he had 2 boys. His boys were in their early teens. He wanted to do something with them. He said, let's figure out something to do that we can do together that'd be fun. And they came up with the idea that they wanted to own a race team. And so he started looking around at what he was willing to spend. NASCAR quickly went out the window. But what was a viable deal was if he could find a partner, which he did, he could find a partner, IndyCar, which races the Indy 500. IndyCar would be something that would fit his budget for racing. There is no racing that's cheap. I'm just going to tell you that. And so found a partner. They agreed to move on it. Who are we going to have to do this thing? I learned about this guy who's an attorney, West Point grad, blah, blah, blah. He comes down, flies in, interviews John, and hires John. So John is now the manager of the race team. And he's putting this team together. And they've got a driver. And everybody's got years and years of really high, credible experience. Now, we're in the same office complex. We have lunch together regularly. So I'm hearing about this, and I go, John, you ever need anything, you got my phone number, so holler at me. Okay, what can you do? That could be a challenge, but you need somebody like to carry tires or water or something? I can do that. Yeah, okay, well, I didn't hear from him. Season starts. They have their first race. The only television time they got was at Homestead down in Orlando, Florida, at the Homestead racetrack. I'm watching the race, of course. I'm all into it. The only airtime they got was about 10 minutes left in the race when they wrecked. And they got about 30 seconds of airtime. That was it. So if you're sponsoring a race team, what do you care about? Airtime. The reason I'm putting money into it as a sponsor is I need my name out there. And so their sponsors were not happy. So about 3-4 days after that race, and A lot of times IndyCar will space races out every 2-3 weeks. They don't do them back to back to back to back back to back like NASCAR. So the next race wasn't going to be for 2 weeks. 3 or 4 days go by. John calls me and he goes, I need some help. Maybe you can do this. Can you do PR? I'm like, Johnny, I was born doing PR, brother. Now, I can do more PR than you can possibly imagine. He goes, great. Got one problem. What? You can't afford me. What? I'm like, I'm telling you, my time's incredibly valuable. I don't think you can afford me. And he was crestfallen. Oh, man. I thought I had this figured out. I said, well, wait a minute. I didn't say you couldn't have me. I said you couldn't afford me. Let's figure out a way that this works for both of us. Because I'm thinking on a completely different path than he's thinking. And I said, here's how I could do this. I'm a part of the crew. I'm a part of the pit crew. He goes, well, what can you do? I'm like, nothing. He said, well, let me talk to the owners and see. That's a pretty big hurdle to overcome, but let me see. And he calls me back the next day and he goes, hey, we got it figured out. I'm all ears. So you can be the sign guy. I'm like, great, what's the sign guy? Every race team, NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, has a guy that tells the car where to stop when it comes into the pits. That's the sign guy. He holds a sign out that says, stop here. I'm like, John, I can do that, brother. So I got to be a part of the 99 and 2000 race season, spent the entire season. Within about 4 or 5 races, I was pulling hoses for the front tire changers. I was also the guy responsible for replacing the nose if we had an accident. Unfortunately, we only had one, only had to do that once, but getting the nose over the wall and stuff. So I got 2 wonderful years, and then Robert Allen entered my life and made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. It crushed me to leave racing, but I spent 8 years with Bob that were just incredibly wonderful, speaking and made an obscene amount of money and fed my real estate business. Whatever you're doing feeds the machine. So if you decide I'm going to do it, something happens and you figure out how to get it done. If you have a commitment, then that will drive you. So I've already told you right now what my commitment is for my boys, and that has a 10-year timeline on it. And I want to make sure that they each have a solid rental portfolio when I'm gone, and I don't have to worry about that. Not only do I have to worry about them, I know their family will be taken care of. Okay? So you got to make radical changes if you're planning on doing something different than or having a different result than you have right now. Now, for those of you online, you see this. We're going to do some stuff. I'm going to draw a little bit, but you'll see what I'm talking about is the slide that you see here. This is the cycle of real estate. You have to know that changes are coming in the real estate market. It's hot right now. And it's going to be hot for a while, but it's been hot for a while. Go back to, for the Texas area, December of 2012 was when the market caught fire. Now, here's the reason that we know the cycle is coming. Did all of this happen in December? No. It started happening month after month after month after month, but this is when it showed its face to the public. There was about 1.5 years prior to that, that if you know what to look at in the market, you started going, hey, market's changing. This is a battleship, the real estate industry. It's not an IndyCar that you can spin around on a dime. It's a battleship. If you ever knew anybody in the Navy that served on an aircraft carrier or destroyer, they don't just make a turn. They have to make a giant loop that's very time consuming. That's real estate. in the single family market. So one of the things I always do on the radio show and that I do on the podcast is I regularly talk about the underpinnings of the market. There's a few key underpinnings that I keep track of to see what's happening with the market. One of those, which has been changing now for 18 consecutive months, is we are creating more new foreclosures than we are selling existing foreclosures. Okay? Do I follow that? More houses being foreclosed than foreclosures being sold. Now, is anybody out there right now going, what? The market's great. It's red hot. What's this guy talking about? I'm talking about where the market is going so that you can be prepared for the change and it doesn't bother you. You simply adjust your business because the cycle is going to happen whether you're paying attention to it, whether you believe in it or not, it's going to happen. And as it happens, if we understand how to react to it and we understand the signs that it is happening right now, it doesn't bother you. Were there, think back to 07, 08, did you get a little freaked out when it looked like the market collapsed? Well, there was about well over a year where on the radio show every week I'd go, hey, guess what happened this week? We had more new foreclosures than we sold existing foreclosures. What does that mean? That means the foreclosure inventory is growing. What does that mean? The market's cooling. And at the time, until the market turns publicly, people go, man, I don't get it. My neighbor just sold these houses, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. If you're looking at the underpinnings, and this is a key one, another one is days on market. Days on market. Days on market. And as it starts to lengthen, that's telling you the market's slowing. Like right now, days on market in the Metroplex up to about 37, 38 days, depending on what section of town you're looking at, and whether you look this morning or last week. But 37, 38 days, well, 6 months ago, that was an unheard of number. We're like, well, it must really be in bad shape if it's been on the market that long. Well, back prior to 2012, when I looked at foreclosures, I didn't look at anything that hadn't been on the market 120 days. That was one of my filters. I was like, yeah, I don't want to see it if it's not nasty enough that it hadn't been on at least 120 days. And it's hard to find a property today that's been on the market that long. And trust me, if you do, it's nasty. It's bad nasty. Okay? So I've got to understand these underpinning things. So foreclosures, days on market, how many properties, how many listings actually close. So you'll see that spread. There's always more listings that enter into a contract than there are closings. That's always the case, no matter how the market's doing, because certain people, their financing falls out for whatever reason. So you'll always have more contracts entered into than actually close. But when you have a hot market, those numbers are pretty close. As the market cools, it starts to do this. And that gap between number of properties that have entered into a contract and the number that close grows. And that's another one of those signs that, hey, the market's cooling. We're getting into, so we see up here on our slide, top of the market. We've been at the top of the market since the end of 2012. And now it's starting to flatten. So prices aren't jumping up. They're staying steady. They're flattening out. And with Corona, we've heard so much about flattening. We got to flatten the curve out. Well, right now it's happening in the real estate market. The pricing curve is flattening out. What happens after that? It drops off. Okay? And typically it takes us about 18 to 24 months in this flattening process, which is right where we are right now. So typically you're looking at 18 to 24 months of pricing curve flattening. So the pricing curve has been going up, now it's flattening out. Then it's going to fall off. And as it falls off, you're going to have another 18 to 24 months that prices start just dropping. Again, if I understand that that's coming, does it freak me out? No, because I can change my business. If I'm going through this period of flattening and I enter into the period of pricing dropping, what am I wanting to do a whole lot more of? Buying and buy and hold. Yeah. Now, can I do seller financing? Oh, yeah, all day long. So flips kind of take a back seat during that part of the market because money tightens up. And we're seeing this in the mortgage market already, that for the retail side of the industry, the money's still there, but the credit criteria is tightening up. That's another one of those signs, okay? So how many houses have been refied? How many new mortgages have opened up? And all I'm looking at for those numbers is what's the trend? So over the last few months, what's the trend? Well, over the last few months, the trend has been a lot less new mortgages, and the refi market is slowing down a little bit. Because look, there's only so many times you can go out and refi your house, right? And we had a really good first quarter in the refi market. Strong first quarter. And has it dropped off? Sure. Now that's external, but it's dropped off, but it started slowing anyway. So I'm looking at those underpinnings. So we get into the pricing starting to drop, and it simply changes my strategy where I'm focused more on buy and hold. I can still do selling, but I want to do selling and seller financing. If I'm doing seller financing and buying hold, I'm making the most amount of profit I can for that part of the market, for where the market is right now at that time. And we're getting there. We're not there yet, but we're getting there, and we're getting there fairly quickly. I think we're going to see a significant drop off in the marketplace about second quarter next year. Once we get past the election, doesn't matter who's running, by the way, they're never going to let that, an incumbent's never going to let that happen in an election year, unless they don't want to be reelected, you know. So once we get past the election, this is going to happen, doesn't matter who wins, okay? If the Democrat wins, it's probably going to happen faster, and it could be a little bit slower if Trump's reelected, but it's going to happen because you can do all kind of financial policies, but you cannot stop the market. The market will change. It has to catch its breath. That's all the downturn in the market is the market catching its breath. It's cooling off. If you're looking at the slide, it gets down toward the bottom where now we've dropped. Now we go through another flattening period where they stop dropping, but they're not raising. So it's just flattened out. Then it makes the turn back up. It has to go through that at the bottom where it's cooled off, prices have dropped, and it's stabilized. It has to hit that before it can get hot again. So back in the 90s, you'll remember this. I lived in Southern California at the time, lived in LA for like 7 years. And the real estate market crashed. Time magazine did a picture of front cover that had an outline of the state of California, and it had, I remember when everything had the circle and the line through it. And so you had the outline of the state of California, you had the big red circle with the line through it, and the headline was "Real Estate is Dead." And if you read the article, it was like, this is the greatest calamity that's ever happened. We're never going to come back, blah, 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 blah. Now, I wasn't in real estate yet. I was still a couple years away from getting into the business when this started. And it's like, wow, oh man. And what happened? Did it come back? Would you laugh if you could buy a property in Southern California within 20% of what those numbers were when it peaked back then? Of course you would. Because the numbers are just crazy stupid how expensive it is, okay? When I bought DFW Properties in 2010, the guy that I bought it from, so Michael, great guy. So we were same age. He introduces me to all the agents at DFW Properties. He said, look, I'm keeping this very, very quiet. They're not going to know until I introduce you. They don't know. His wife had gotten really sick. They don't know that we're getting out of the business. They don't know we're selling DFW Properties. So when I introduce them to you is when I'm going to tell them. I'm like, great. So we get up and Michael says, hey, we have meetings regularly. This one's a special meeting. I just wanted you guys to know, I'm 54. And there comes a time in a man's life when he starts to slow down and reprioritize. And that's what I've been doing. And I've decided to sell DFW Properties. And Bill Barnett has bought it. Bill Barnett. So there's these, all the agents are like, blank face. I get up and I go, hey, Bill Barnett, I'm 54 years old. Comes a time in a man's life when you figure out, got to kick it in the ass and get in another gear. That's now. So they all are just like, wow, okay. Woo-hoo. So when do you want to buy? Think about what was going on in 2010. Where was the real estate market? Toilet. When do you want to buy? When things are down. You wouldn't believe the number of friends I had that went, have you lost your mind? You're buying a brokerage firm in this market? I'm like, yeah, it's exactly what I want to buy. Just like houses, right? So as this market turns down, that's a much focus on buy and hold now. Okay, buy and hold. Okay, as that happens, you're going to want to do more and more and more of that to make your business go. So if you know the cycle, you don't have to be worried about what's going on in the market. And by the way, does this cycle happen a little bit different timing all over the country? Yeah, it'll happen nationally, but every market will be a little bit different as to when it starts and when it goes through. So you got to make sure that you understand the cycle and how do I adjust my business for that. All right, so get ready to write this down, everybody online. Make sure you got a pad and paper, because what I'm about to give you is by far, without question, no exception, the single most profitable investing strategy that you're ever going to learn, whether it's me or anybody else. Make sure you're ready for this. Okay, so I take it you've had time to get something. So you ready? All right. Here we go. Buy low, sell high. Now, you'd be shocked how many real estate investors don't follow this. You'd be surprised. The biggest hole and hurdle you have on any individual deal is overpaying on the front end. If I start off in a hole because I made a poor purchase decision on the price, one of the great things my dad taught me, you can sell anything if you buy it right. You can sell anything if you buy it right. I grew up in the shoe business. My dad our family had a chain of shoe stores in Alabama, and we used to go by other stores that were going out of business. And when he started, I was in high school, he started taking me with him when we'd do these buying, and you need to learn this. And so we'd go in and there would be a shoe store that had been running a going out of business sale, typically for about a month. So you can imagine their inventory was picked over pretty good, right? So these were what's referred to in the business as rack stores. So meaning that their whole inventory was on display all the time. They had metal racks and that's what we were. And so we'd go in and look at this, and my dad would go, I'll take everything you got. I'll give you a nickel a pair. If he was really impressed, he'd say, I'll give you a dime a pair. And I'm sitting there going, Dad, this is junk. It's not worth a nickel. What are we going to do with it? We would never put this in our store. Like, just try to pay attention. Okay. So we would buy these, nickel, dime a pair, and then we'd get them back to our warehouse, and we would have these big boxes, and they were just thrown in. They weren't separated. They weren't sized. He was like, all right, now you got to go through all of them and pick out the shoes that you want in the store. And so I'd go through and maybe 10% of them would be stock that ended up on the shelves in our stores. But they might be on the shelf at $75 to $100 to $150 a pair that we paid a nickel for, or we paid a dime for. And I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. I get that. But there's not enough of these to make a difference. And he's like, yeah, just try to stay awake while we're doing this. And then he would go buy a double truck ad in the newspaper. So back when newspapers were a big deal. So we're talking 70s here. So a double truck means it's a 2-page. When you open it up, the whole thing was our ad. This weekend, we're running a sidewalk sale. Thousands of pairs of shoes, nothing over $1. There was nothing under $1, but nothing over $1. And we would put these big tables out, and we would separate them solely by men, women, and then we'd have a table for like each size, and we tried our best to keep a size to a table. They're just piled on there. And those were the weekends that our numbers went stupid crazy. People would come by 10, 15, 20 pair of shoes off the table. And so think about this. You bought 20 pair of shoes for $20. And guess what most of them did? Went into the store, and later Dad told me years later, he's like, I think they did it because they felt guilty. That they had bought all this for $20, and so they would go into the store and buy a pair or two retail. Because if you dollar cost average, were they in pretty good shape? Oh yeah. Look, I bought 22 pair of shoes for $100. And we made great money on the retail stuff, and he made great money. He's like, look, you don't get it yet. It's about what you pay for it on the front end. I tell you that story for real estate because it's all about making sure that you got the right number on the front end. If your number's correct going in, you're going to have multiple exit strategies. You're going to be able to make your profit. When do you make your money in real estate? When you buy it. You know, I'm not the first guy you heard that from, won't be the last. It's what you have to understand is, how do I establish the numbers? We'll teach you how to do that. We can't do that here because I've got, Robin said, look, I know this is going to be hard for you, but you've got to hold it to 4 hours. And so we're what, about an hour 15 in this. We got about maybe 20 minutes left on today, but you got to know how to buy it right. And you got to understand that if it doesn't fit, walk away. I don't care what it looks like. And you're going to find, look, I've been doing this a long time. One of the things I've learned is most of the properties, when I'm looking at them and I think, oh yeah, this is a deal, yeah, maybe half of them actually are. And properties I look at and go, nah, about half of them, yeah, because it's the numbers. It's the numbers. I don't care if it takes $60, $70, $100,000 to rehab it. That's a line item on the budget. And the numbers either work with your rehab budget or they don't. And if they don't, you walk away. And if they do, you don't walk away. Okay? So buy low, sell high. 3 things that are keeping you from success, not only for the remainder of this year, but for next year too. So how do we make this the next 12 months, the best 12 months that you've ever had in your business? I want you to think about this for just a minute. I want you to think about next summer. So it's June next summer. Maybe even we go forward to 4th of July next summer, and you're on vacation with your family. You're at the beach, you're in the mountains, you're on a cruise, you're wherever it is that you like to go. You're at the lake. I'm a beach guy. So for me, this is the Caribbean. So I'm on the beach, and I want you to think about what the past year was like. How incredible was this past 12 months? And if the past 12 months was the best 12 months you've ever had in your business, what would that look like? I've got to know what that looks like to be able to formulate a plan to get there. This is where most investors miss it completely. They get really hung up in the technique and they miss this, because this 6 inches right here is the shortest route between where you are and where you want to be. Anybody can learn this. Anybody. And the way I teach it, I guarantee you I could take a 5th grader and turn them into an accomplished investor, because it is a very straightforward, simple business. I didn't say it was easy. I said it's straightforward and it's simple. There's not a person in here, there's not a person online that mentally can't grasp this 100% inside out. Where the tough part comes is this: having the confidence in your knowledge to get out and pull the trigger. Having the confidence in your budgeting to know that the number you offered was the right number. To know that you're going to have a hiccup or two. Every deal you do is going to have a hiccup or two. Nobody can train you around that. Every time I go through a deal and it's gone perfectly smooth, the closer it gets to close on the sell side, the more gray hair I get. Because I know something, there's never been a deal that I thought I had one. I thought I had one that I was like, it was closing, and it was the day of the close. We're closing that afternoon, like lunchtime. We're closing like at 2 o'clock. I'm eating lunch and I'm sitting there going, I'm going to have to change something I say when I teach. This deal has been silky smooth. I've never had a deal like this. I mean, it's gone perfect, every single piece of it. And then my phone rang. And it was the buyer. And he was crying. I'm like, dude, you okay? He goes, no, I'm not going to be able to close. I'm like, okay, what's going on? I just got fired. And I said, look, dude, don't get freaked out. It's a house. You'll get another job. There'll be another house. I'm trying to build him up. And he goes, no, I hadn't told my wife yet. That's why I'm crying. I'm like, oh, can't help you there, brother. Yeah, you hold your hold there. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen. If you understand the market, you understand the steps, you don't get freaked out with it. Okay? So can you invest wisely in a hot market? Get yourself over the hump, because, look, there's an art to getting over the hump. And getting over the hump is just a phrase. It's just a methodology. It's just a belief pattern of how do I get it done? That's all that is. For me, it's get over the hump. Okay? So that's we cover that in the book, top to bottom, and teach you. And I'm not here trying to sell books, but you're going to get a free copy. So make sure Robin's got your information. So you get how to make it in a seller's market and how to make it into a buyer's market, because we're about to get into a buyer's market. You know, a year may seem like a long time right now. It's not. It's going to fly by. And we're going to end up getting into a new buyer's market, and you need to be prepared for it and not stop doing your business and not worry about waiting to when you think the bottom of the market has hit. Because can you predict that? No, you can't. Okay. And if you try, it's going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. All right. So into a buyer's market. I'm going to skip this agreement here, although it is very funny, and I love being funny, but I'm going to skip that. So if pro and con are opposites, then progress is the opposite of Congress. Just a sidebar note there. All right. Can you continue to afford to miss deals in a great market? You can't. And look, here's the thing that experienced investors, I guarantee you these two understand this. I understand it. We'll get you to where you understand it. It's always a great market. It's always a great market. If I understand the adjustments in my business and I shift from when the market is hot and happening like it is right now, and when it starts to turn down, and that's just a tweak and a shift in my business, is it still a great business? And I'm going to tell you something. I'm not looking forward to a downturn in the market, but I'm not bothered by it at all either. But I make more money in a downturn than I do in a hot market. And I think if you talk to any investor that's been around for more than a cycle, and I've been through about 3 of these, you're going to find out. They're going to tell you, hey, I wouldn't wish this on the market. However, I make more money when the market's down than I do when it's up. So you got to get radical to get out of your comfort zone. You get like Bob. This is one of my buddies down in Orlando, Bob Richnew, and holding a nice little check there a couple of weeks after being into a training that I'll tell you about here in a minute, and got this nice letter from Bob. May 31st, picked up a $23,000 check on an assignment fee. Would you guys be okay with that? For an assignment fee? That's a wholesale deal, right? $23,000 check, and put $1,000 down on it. So they grossed $24,023 net. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You know, if you're doing one of those a quarter, that's an extra $100,000 a year. Here's something that I want you to get over. Get through your noggin. I got to do 40, 50 deals. You know, no. Get over that. Ron LeGrand, another great mentor and friend of mine for many, many years. Ron and I were having dinner at the top of the Peachtree Plaza in Atlanta 20 years ago, probably. And we were talking about my business, and I was talking about how many deals I was going to do in this coming year. And he said, he refers to me as boy most of the time. He says, come here, boy. And we got up and we're walking like I thought we were leaving the restaurant. So the top of the Peachtree Plaza is the rotating kind of like it is at Reunion, all glass. And I'm like, wow, I don't know what I said, but apparently dinner's over. And we walk over to a window. And he goes, you see all those lights out there? It's night. You know, in Atlanta, just like Dallas, is just a sea of lights. I'm like, yeah. He goes, you need about 10 or 12 of those to say yes to you. Change your life. You don't need to be worried about trying to do a deal a week. You don't need to be worried about that. Now, I can teach you how to do that. I can't, and Ron could, but you got to take them where they are, right? And where he had to take me at that moment was, hey, look, get it through your head because you're overwhelmed. He didn't say this to me, but this is what was going on. You're overwhelmed with the prospect of, I got to do this to have a significant financial impact. No, you don't. Do you have to do 10 or 12? No, you don't. Yeah, you start with one, and then if you start your first year and you do 1 to 4 your first year and you're doing flips, is that going to be a huge impact? It is. Because once you get the first one done, it's the process of how do I do more faster, okay, without losing control of quality and profit. Okay, those are big asterisks, without losing control of quality or profit. All right, so that's my buddy Bob. So this is number 42 here. This is John Hollingsworth Jr. This was our race team. We ended up with 2 cars in the 500 both years that I was on the crew, but John was our primary driver in 1999, our first year. I learned something about real estate at the Indy 500. So I'm at the Indy 500, and we had actually ended up with 3 cars there, but our first 2 cars were running fast enough that they were going to qualify. So even back then, we were running about 235, 238 down the backstretch. And we're like, we got 2 guys in, and we had another guy, Mike Groff, incredible guy. Mike has a dubious record, an extremely successful IndyCar driver who has never won a race. He has more second place finishes than anybody in IndyCar history. And so we were like, man, we got Mike. He's driving our 3rd car. This is going to be incredible. And he couldn't get it up to speed. And we brought in a guy named Tony Bittenhausen. Bittenhausen, a very famous name in the IndyCar world. Tony used to drive for Roger Penske. He was a big-time driver. And he was up doing the Indy 500 one year, and it's 3 or 4 nights or a week before the race, and there's this dirt track where they go race these midgets, and he goes and decides that he's going to jump in and just have some fun. And he rolls his midget. And if midgets are open cockpit, just like IndyCar, his arm goes out of the car, mangles it up, and he's done. His career's over. And so he became a consultant. And we brought Tony in to help Mike, to coach Mike, to consult Mike on how do you get this thing up to qualifying speed. So every time, so we're there the entire month. They do it 2 weeks now, but back then it was the month of May, and we literally were there the entire month. And so we'd do a practice session. Couldn't get it speed up. It was always something wrong with the car. Benhausen, who smoked, which around ethanol is an interesting thing to do, always had a cigarette in his mouth, and it always had action like that. And he'd be leaning over the driver, and the ashes would be falling. And we'd be behind him, just dying, howling. It's like, oh my gosh, we're all going to burn up right here any second now. Yeah. And so he kept telling the guys, you do this, do that. And he finally told Mike, get out of the car. Just get out of the car. And he called John over, and he said, John, get in this car and take it out, because there's nothing wrong with this car, and I know it. And John goes out and he hits 240 like that. And he comes back in and he tells Mike, look, you got to figure it out. Everybody has a speedometer. Every driver has an internal speedometer. This is you and I as real estate investors. Every real estate investor has an internal money clock. For the IndyCar driver, it's no matter what they're in, they can't break what their mental interior internal speed limit is. And Mike's was about 230. And he qualified as the last guy in the field, and Indy has this thing called bump day, and he got bumped by the very last possible driver by a 1/10 of a second, and he didn't get to run the Indy that year. But he couldn't get over. It wasn't the car. And that's what Benhausen wanted to show him. It's not the car. It's you. You can't go that fast. And if you can't go that fast, he literally said this to the guy. If you can't go that fast, there's plenty of people on George Boulevard out there that need their grass cut. We're just going, holy cow. True statement though, right? Okay. You got to get over it. And that was the last of Mike's career. John had a different speed limit. Okay. Started 12th, finished 12th. He was the highest qualifying and highest finishing rookie that year. What I learned about real estate there was money equals speed. Because in racing, it's easy to see. If I've got more money to work with, I got better engineers. I can buy a better setup on the car. I can get a little bit more track time for my driver. That's easy to interpret money equals speed in racing, but money equals speed in real estate as well. And how you do that is I can either go out and learn all this stuff on my own, or I can say, hey, I'm going to work with somebody that can show me how to do it and provide the speed. So I'm going to spend the money, and you are. You're going to spend it one way or the other. You're going to spend it with someone, or you're going to spend it with mistakes. That's your choice. But you're going to spend it if you stay in the game. Okay? So money equals speed. Now, here's a deal that I did out here in Keller. $40,000 on a very easy, quick flip. When we go through training on 2 and 3 day stuff, we go through what the purchase process was, because that's when the money was made, right? Could have been a gazillion different buyers when I sold it, but buying it correctly is what put 40 grand on a not very expensive property. So we've gone through the cycle of real estate and what you need to understand about the market so that you're not freaked out as the market changes. You understand now that money buys speed. It buys it in racing. It buys it in real estate. So I have permission to tell you about how to get radical real quick. We're going to take about 8 or 10 minutes here. Jot these dates down. June 27, 28. June 27, 28, 3 weeks from today. I'm going to do a 2-day training on getting radical and how you do that. Vernon's actually been through this and survived. So you should, I'm telling you, you'll make it through. So, so in that, we're going to go through 12 hours of in-class cash creating content to get you radical. Because if you're not going to be able to make it happen, right? I sell that at $997, $997, and that covers 2 people, okay? So let's see what you get there. So in that, here is a couple of guys from Houston, Steve Anderson, that sent me this, he and Danny Voles. Training we received was applied to our recent deal. The advice, support, and course content you gave us helped us make a little bit over 26 grand on our last deal, which closed today. This is back in February. Closed today. This is pre-foreclosure house, and it took less than 2 months from purchase to sale. It was about as pretty a deal as you could do. Thanks again. With an extra 23 grand on a quick flip, hell. Sure. If I'm paying $997 and I learn how to go do 23 grand in a couple of months, is that a fair exchange? Yeah. Okay. 26 hours worth of video training. I went through last year and sat down some in studio and did 26 hours. And I brought in, there's about 3 guest speakers that I brought in, like my real estate attorney, to talk about LLCs and series LLCs and how you should be structured. And I brought in about 3 people like on different topics, but my real estate attorney, Jeff Morrison, was one of them. And I did 26 hours of video training, and basically I said, I'm gonna pour out every single thing I can think of about real estate into this training. And it came out to be 26 hours. And it is, I'm gonna tell you, it's impressive. That's included in the $997 is 26 hours plus a 2-day. Okay. So you can go back with that over and over and over and over and over again. As a bonus, I have my home study course. Now, what the home study course is a different 3-day training recorded live. Now, this is audio, but it's a different 3-day training. I sell that at $14.95. That's your bonus on the $997. Okay, so it's 3 full days. It's all the slides. It's all the notes, and it includes 357 pages of written manual support with it. So think about this. You're getting a 2-day live event. So that's a 9 to 5, 2 days. Then you're getting 26 hours of additional training on video. Now you're getting an extra 3-day on the home study course. So you got the 2-day event, which is $997 by itself. Then you've got the 26 hours, which is $14.95. Then you got the home study course, which is $14.95. So you're about $4 grand right now in value for that $997. That's a lot to it. Okay, that's just a recap there. So I got this from Terry Waltrip. Some of you may remember Terry when he's still, he's moved now, but he used to be the basketball coach at Texas Wesleyan. Great real estate investor, won a national championship. Now look, I don't care what level you're coaching at. When you have the ability to put together a national championship team, you got something special. And that dude's got something special. He's a terrific guy. So anyway, I got this nice letter from Terry. It worked out well thus far. They were very appreciative of saving what credit they have left and moving on with their life, because we teach you how to have a positive impact on somebody else. See, when we get into this thing, we're thinking about what's this going to do for me. When your business changes, is when you start thinking about what can I do for them. And then the first time you do a deal like this one, where this Terry got this, when you do a deal like this where it impacts somebody else in a very positive manner, and you weren't the only one that won. See, I don't like this winner-loser thing in real estate, not in business. In business, it better be win-win.
okay? Because if it's not, you got a short-term business. And I've been around a while, and that's the thing we run on, is everybody's got to win, okay? So they were appreciative, saying what credit they had left. This is a foreclosure deal we put together. Really rewarding, at the same time, very much nerve-wracking. That's where holding the hand comes into play. Learning curve, dealing with all the attorneys, mortgage companies, et cetera, was so high. I learned so much. Here's your program as a playbook. There's a coach, right? Used it as a playbook as it was designed. I'm either going to wholesale the deal or possibly use it as a lease purchase option. But either way, I've got great options in the deal. Currently negotiating with 2 other pre-foreclosures now. So you look at, what is my service providing? When you're out looking at a deal, your exit strategy is, what's my service providing? I'm either going to flip this property and I'm going to make it a great deal for somebody else by making a house that is a terrible house right now into probably the nicest house in the neighborhood. And that's what I teach, is how to make it a nice. I'm not the guy that does the bare minimum to get by. That's not me. If that's who you are, probably not for you, okay? I'm going to teach you how to make it a show place and stay in budget, keep your profit spread, and you can do that. It's just knowledge. That's all it is. And that comes from experience, okay? So here's everything that you get when you decide that you're going to get radical with real estate. So we've got the $24.92. That's without the home study course bonus. The home study course, $14.95. So your $4,000 is the value of the entire package at $997. So you get 2 days live training, then you get 3 days on video and another 3 days on audio. So here is, I told Robin, I said, I'm going to do something that is as irresistible as I can possibly make it. You get all of that. It's $199 a person if you're coming in single. It's $299 for a couple. That's I can't do any better than that. If you're serious about exploding your business for the remainder of the year, then figure out how you can be there. The numbers should not be oppressive. $199 for a single, $299 for a couple, and it's going to be a hoot. I promise you, you're going to have fun. Dick?
Bill, where is this student?
It's probably going to be in Arlington. I'm waiting on a confirmation back from the location that we've been using, which is not a hotel, but it has a fabulous meeting room in it. And we'll hold this will be no more than about 30. That's kind of, I like to keep it around 30, max 40, but around that range, because I like you guys to be able to do just what you did, to be able to raise your hand anytime through the course of the 2 days and go, hey, boom, here we go. Okay, I got a question. All right, so $199 for a single, $299 for a couple. See Cindy and Robin, they'll get you squared away on that. Got any questions at all, shoot them over to Robin. You can shoot them to me, but come through Robin if you would, and just we'll get you squared away. Okay, questions from anybody here? Or Cindy, if anybody pops up on the chat with a question, let me know. Okay. And my absolute all-time favorite real estate statement, period. Is that the best you can do? And yes, it is, but thank you for asking. Because I'm going to teach you that, right? I was, Ron LeGrand taught me that many, many, many years ago. And you hear things when you are studying with people that they click with you the minute you hear it. That one, like my dad telling me, once it finally clicked with, okay, I can, if you buy it right, you can sell anything. Once that finally clicked, I got it. And that's what's going to happen. That's what I see with investors all the time. You get to a point where the light bulb comes on, it clicks, you understand it, you got it. That's what we're going to get you to. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Wow, it's getting crazy around here. So where do you go to get this incredible package? Go to secretstocash.com.
secretstocash.com. Now, we've already got some questions coming in on chat and stuff. If you've got a question for me, jump over to Facebook, private message me. Just if I'm not part of your Facebook, if we're not on friends on Facebook, all you got to do is search in Facebook for Bill Barnett and then private message your questions. I like to answer those personally, so I'll get right back to you, get you whatever it is that you've got answered, get that squared away for you so that you can move forward with the incredible radical real estate movement. Get a part of that. Secretstocash.com. That's where you're going to go to place your order. Secretstocash.com. The entire package, $199 for one person, $299 for two people. Now, I know a lot of you are not in the Texas market or you're not in the DFW market. So you're like, well, Bill, how big a deal is the 2-day event for me? Well, I'm going to tell you it's a big deal, but here's what you're going to get. You're going to get a certificate just like this, a radical real estate certificate for the 2-day live event. This is a 2-year certificate. The certificate is dated the date that your purchase goes through. So you're going to have 2 years to be able to come do the event with us live. Not only we do it here, and we do this every other month. Not only do we do it in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, we also do it in Orlando and we do it in Las Vegas. So we do it around the country. It's every other month. So we'll have plenty of opportunity over the next 2 years for you to get to us and for us to be close enough to you so that it's not a big inconvenience. And so you're going to get this 2-year certificate to be able to claim your live event. Now, here's the other thing that's going on with it. With everything that has happened because of COVID, then we started doing trainings on Zoom, just like you're looking at this now. So the June event, the end of June, the 27th and 28th, that event is going to be on Zoom as well. So if you're local, if you're in the Texas market and it's not too big of an inconvenience, come be with us live. I love having people live in the room with me. But we're also going to broadcast that. We'll do Zoom. We may or may not do Facebook Live, but we'll certainly do Zoom on it. You'll be able to see that. So not only are you going to get the entire 26-hour summit training, the 26 hours of video training called the summit, that is a $14.95 value. You're also going to get the $14.95 home study course, the Are You Dumb Enough to Be Rich Home Success System. $14.95, that's $3,000 right there. Then the 2-day sells for $997. So you have $4,000 worth of value. I want this to be just something, there's no possible way, if you're serious about real estate investing, for you to walk away from this without saying, it's time to get radical. I'm doing something radical by offering this to you. Now, $199 per person, $299 for a couple. So you'll get your 2-year certificate. Jump over to secretstocash.com, secretstocash.com. You'll see an order form that looks just like this. And on that order form, it'll recap everything that you're getting. And we'll start sending this out in the next 48 hours after your purchase is complete. So go to secretstocash.com, say, Bill, I'm doing one person, $199. I'm doing a couple, whether it's you and your spouse, whether it's you and your business partner. I'm doing 2 people at $299. And get squared away and start receiving this material and start going over it. There's going to be a couple of surprise bonuses that I'm going to tell you with the first allotment of your delivery so that you can work your way through this and get your business built. Thanks so much for being a part of us tonight. And again, if you've got any questions at all, private message me on Facebook. Just go to Bill Barnett and send that over. I like to answer those personally. I'll get those to you. Make sure that you get it. We're only going to have this offer is not going to stay up forever. Guys, it's not going to stay up a whole lot longer. So make sure that you get signed up. Get back in the game. If you're in the game already and struggling at all, time to kick it up to the next gear. This will get you there. I know how to get you over the hump, and getting radical is how we're going to do that. So make sure that you join us. Thanks so much for being on tonight. Again, got any questions, please private message me, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.